All right, so in this week's guitar lesson, we're going to learn how to play a little blues rhythm that's got some fill licks and some things that you can add to your rhythm playing just to make it sound more interesting. And this actually sounds great on its own. I'm going to play this on an acoustic guitar. There's not going to be even a lead part as I demonstrate this, but you could play this on an acoustic or electric guitar, and it sounds great on its own. And there's a few little twists in it that you might not expect to make it a little more interesting sounding blues. Here's what it sounds like. So in this video, we're going to break that down note for note so that you can steal these ideas and apply them to whatever it is you want to do. Or you can just take this rhythm and just perform it if you want to do it that way. I've got everything tabbed out, so if you want the tablature for this rhythm and also a lead part, I wrote a little lead part that goes with the rhythm, which I'll play at the end of this video, and put the tab up for that as well. So if you want the tab for the lead and the rhythm so that you can download it and have that offline and print it off or whatever, you can get those extra materials by going to activemelody.com and doing a search for ML110. Okay, so we're going to be looking at this in the key of C, and I'm going to be in this position here. So this is, and by the way, you can play this in any key once you understand some of these basic principles here, which I'll explain. But key of C, that's using the A shape. Now, here's the note you need to pay attention to. That's your C note. So in my mind, that's fifth string there, 3rd fret, 5th string. That C note, if I play that with my index finger, it helps me sort of see the chord that I'm playing there, or visualize the chord. I've also got a C note up here on the 3rd string, 5th fret. So inside that chord there, I've got 2 C notes, I guess. And what I like about this C chord here, using the A shape, is just underneath it, this string that's underneath it on the 6th string, that's my 5 chord. So that's my G note. And if I play the E shape, actually play an E7 where I lift my pinky there, I'm playing the 5 chord. So this is my 1 chord, this is its 5 chord. And they're just right in the same neighborhood, same hand position. I didn't have to move my hand at all. So just pointing that out, most of you probably already know that. But anyway, the reason I'm saying that is if you want to take everything we're going to do here and play it in a different key, let's say you wanted to play a blues in the key of D instead of the C, you just find your D note on the 5th string, which is here, and then there's your starting chord, there's your 5 chord, and everything else is going to follow off of that 1 chord. So anyway, let's get back to C. So here's the first thing we're going to do. Check this out. Now this may not sound like much, but it's already something that's very useful and something you've got to know how to do. So what I'm doing is I'm starting by playing a downstroke on that C note, and then I'm going to do up, down as a strum. Right? So pretty simple there. Down, up, down. Now watch this. Now what I'm doing here is I'm coming into the next chord shape. So I'm still playing a C chord. I'm still thinking C. C chord using the A shape. Next door neighbor is my C chord using the G shape. Now if I were to play all 6 strings, it would look something hideous like that, which nobody does. Most people just play the top part of the chord or the bottom part of the chord, sort of, you kind of split it into 2 parts, or at least that's how I think of it anyway. But when I look at the bottom part of that G chord shape, really just this part of it, so strings 5, 4, 3, and 2. But what I've got is I've got an embellishment off of my C chord, and what I mean by that is, check this out. So it's my C chord with a C in the bass, and then my C chord with an E in the bass. That's all it is, or C over E if you were to look in a chord chart. But this allows me, in this position, to play little embellishments. Look at that. That's on strings 4 and 3. I'm doing a hammer-on between the 5th fret and the 7th fret on that 4th string. And then I've got the same thing on strings 5 and 4. And so watch this. You can do things like this. All embellishments off of the C idea. So it kind of starts with that root note and it leads me to the chord, which leads me to its next door neighbor. And that's just the way my brain works. But this little embellishment off of that, that's getting into the Jimi Hendrix territory where, you know, he would do a lot of these kinds of things with his rhythm playing. So let's get back. So we have, then we go to the 4 chord, which is our F. And so I could come down here and play an F here, but why would I want to do that? And then I'm jumping from this position all the way down. That's too much of a jump. I've got an F chord here using the D shape. I don't usually play off of that one too much. That's sort of my least favorite of these little neighborhoods or hand positions. The next one up then is my C shape. So this is my F chord using the C shape. And what I like about this, and the reason I went here, is watch this. I can just put my pinky down and my hand is already in position. Look at that. Look at my fingers. Minimal movement to get to the next thing. And so I'm always thinking about what's the least amount of work I have to do to get my idea across. And it's not like a lazy thing. It's actually a fluid thing. It makes your playing much more fluid when you can just find something close by. So here's how I played the F chord. I hit the F note here with my pinky on the 8th fret, 5th string, and then I did up, down, just like we did for the C. So it's like, and then I did this little bass walk up, even though it's not on a bass string. Well, it's on a lower string, but it's the 4th string, frets 5, 6, 7, and that's walking up to the 3rd interval of my F chord. And you'll hear bass players doing that line where they go, hit the root, walk up to the 3rd. That's a very common bass move. So after I walked up to that 3rd interval of my F chord, then I went ahead and just made the F chord again, but I didn't make the full chord with my pinky. I just played the top part of that C shape. Did another up, down strum. So all together, the F goes like this. So just practice doing that over and over again. So now the song will go back to the 1 chord. So we've gone from the 1 to the 4 and back to the 1, like a quick change blues. It's just pretty standard blues format. So we're gonna go from this F that we're in, this F using the C shape, back to the 1 chord, which is our C. And here's the minimal amount of movement that I have to make to get back to my C. I'm just gonna keep my index finger where it is on that 5th fret. So there's what I was doing for my F, right? I lift my fingers and I can go like this. And I can just come into that triad. That's all I need. You don't have to play all 6 strings. It took me years to understand this, that if somebody shows you to play a C chord like this, for example, you could just play strings 4, 3, and 2. That's fine. That's still a C chord. This is a C chord. It's a triad. So that's what we're going to play. We're going to go, I'm going to slide into it, and then come up here to the 8th fret on the 2nd string with my pinky to grab that string there. And that would be like the 5th interval of my C chord. And when I touch this, by the way, there's a little sidebar for you, but when I touch with my pinky up here on this 8th fret, that's my visual clue for where I'd want to reposition my hand and put my bar to play that chord using the E shape. I hope a light bulb went off for somebody when you saw that. It's like, oh yeah, so this is my C chord using the G shape. If I put my pinky up here, which that's the root, there's the 5th, but that's where my bar would go. So it's just connecting the dots. That's what this is all about. When you're learning how to play the guitar, it's all about just mapping the fretboard and seeing it in different ways. And so that was another big, I remember that when I realized that. All right, so let me back up from the beginning. I started with my 5 chord, my G7, and here's what we have. Now we're going to go to the 5 chord, which is our G. And this is what I did. Just to keep it interesting, right? We're going to the G. Now I could have done a lot of things. I could have played a G7 up here, right? That was one idea I could have done. But what I like to do is I like to hear the sound of And that's the 6 to the 9 chord. So I'm repeating myself. I realize I talk about the 6 to the 9 chord all the time, but I know some of you will appreciate that. You like hearing this repetition because it's like, oh yeah, I know that idea. So this idea is one, you just got to learn it. You got to pick this one up because it's very useful. And what I'm doing, I'm thinking about my G chord here using the E shape, right? And I've talked about this in other lessons, but if, where I've got my bar on this 3rd fret, if I put my index finger on that 3rd fret 1st string and let my other fingers fall into place, you can see on the screen there the sort of the tab version of that, of what that chord looks like. That's a G6. And if I take that G6 and I move it down 2 frets, I'm playing a G9. Now somebody, every time I say that, somebody always goes, those aren't the notes of a G9. It's enough of the notes. You don't have to play every note of every chord to equal the chord. You just have to get the vibe of the chord. That's a big idea. You have to understand that. So if you want to play like a G7, the note that makes it the G7 is this note. So really you could just play the one note and it can represent the sound, the vibe that you're going for. It's pulling the ear in that direction. So if you happen to include 2 notes, like the flat 7 and the 3rd, that's even better. That's 2 notes. It's not all 4 notes of the chord, but it's enough. So this is enough of the G9 to equal the G9. So you have a 6 to the 9. So to get into that G, I did this little walk up with my sort of like the bass sound. It's, again, I'm just thinking sort of like a bass player. And I went from the 3rd fret on the 4th string. We went 3, 4, 5. And from there, I used my ring finger to play that 5th fret 4th string so that my fingers could fall into position to hit that G6. So I went like this. And I walked it down chromatically and did little slides too. All these little nuances that add to your playing. You know, you don't want to be robotic. That's boring. Like when somebody sings, they go, right? It's more that way. So you're always trying to sort of sing with your fingers. Like how would somebody voice this? So that was the 5 chord. Now the song goes back to the 1 chord, right? Which is our C. And this is what I played. Instead of playing a C here, I came up here and played this. And that's my root, flat 7, and 3rd. I'm leaving out the 5th, but that's okay. This is a voicing of a C7. Now I could, if it's easier for you, just play a C chord using the E shape and lift your pinky, but play strings 6, 4, and 3. Now that's going to require you to use your fingers, a little bit of hybrid picking. Use these 2 fingers to pluck strings 4 and 3 while you use your pick on the 6th string like this. Now I find it easier with my left hand just to play it like this. So I've got my pinky and my middle finger hitting strings 4 and 3, and then my index finger hits that 8th fret. Now what's cool about this is so that some of you are going, well, yeah, okay, I get all that, but why would you play your C up here? You said to always find your nearest neighbor. Well, I wanted to do this walk down that goes like this. Isn't that cool? And what I'm doing is I'm walking from my C, my 1, to the 6, but a major 6. And I'll explain why that major 6 in just a minute. But for now, just know that we're going from the 1, we go down 2 frets, which would be like my flat 7, 1, flat 7, down to the 6. But I'm keeping that same shape. In fact, you could do it with a bar chord. You go. I love the sound of that. When you hear that major 6, you know what's about to come. You're about to go to that chord, which is my D, to the 5 chord, and back to the 1. You know that because you've heard that progression in a million songs. Now let me explain going from this 6 major to the D7, to the G7, and back to the C. What I'm doing there is this, and you're just going to have to follow me with this, but the A, so let's go from the A. The A is the 5 chord of my D. The D is the 5 chord of my G. And the G is the 5 chord of my C. So what I did was I played the 5 chord of the 5 chord of the 5 chord of the 1. Okay, and if you're confused by what the heck is a 5 chord, these are just the numbers of the major scale. We're playing this song in the key of C. Look at the major scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's my 1, there's my 5. So that's what I mean by 5. So it's just the numbers of the major scale. But 5 chord of the 5 chord of the 5 chord of the 1. That happens a lot in music. And so you have to kind of reverse engineer this idea. And I'll show you just an easy visual way to do that. But it happens in music a lot, especially in ragtime and stuff. It's a great little thing to add to your blues to make it sound more interesting. Here's kind of what's going on. So if I took my C chord and I asked myself, what's the 5 chord of C? Well, the 5 chord of C is G, right? And then if I look at that G chord and I go, what's the 5 chord of G? Well, you just have to know this. You could use that little formula that I showed you. I could find my G chord using the A shape and look at the string underneath it, which is this note. It's my D note. So the 5 chord of G is D. And then if I look at my D chord and go, what's the 5 chord of D? Well, it's A. Look, here's my D chord using the A shape. There's my A. So watch this little thing here. Using the E shape to the A shape. Then we go down 2 frets, E shape to the A shape. That's all it is visually. If you're just thinking shapes, it's E shape to the A shape. Go down 2 frets and do the same thing. E shape to the A shape. So A, D, G, and it resolves back to its 1, which is C. And those are secondary dominant chords. I'll put a lesson up on the screen if you want to know more information about what's going on there. But that happens in music all the time. You have to understand that principle. Sometimes it happens in the key of the song like we just did, but sometimes it happens on a random chord in the song. Let's say I was playing a song that had a C and an A minor. Common, right? A root and its relative minor. Now, I could ask myself, what's the 5 chord of that A minor? Well, the answer is it's at E. So check this out. C, E, A. Do you hear what happened? I created an extra tension. I threw that in between, and then it resolved to its 1, which would have been A minor. So it's just a cool effect there. But that's what happened there. So we go from the C, we walk down to the flat 7, down to the A, which is our major 6 chord, and then I did that little walk up, another little bass walk up, 3, 4, 5 on the 5th string, frets 3, 4, and 5. Played my D7 there using that C7 shape, and then my G7, which is where we started, and then we're back to this C. And then we play the 5 chord again. Or if you're ending the song, you'd go, it's a 1 to the 5 to the 1, and then you could throw in the C7. That's a good way to end the song, is just whatever your 1 is, you just play the dominant 7 of it, like a C7. You can start it up a half step and slide it down. That happens a lot in the blues as well. But that's that little... Watch this. There's my D to the G. Here's one little alternative. I'm just going to throw this at you. It's a super easy one, but listen, check this out. We go down to the A. Now watch this. I keep going with the same shape. Now that's another way to do it. Instead of playing that D to get to the G, I could have played the G sharp to the G. So that just kind of keeps that same little shape, which makes it easy. It's just another sound. But anyway, I wanted to, throw those options at you. Okay, so as if that rhythm isn't cool enough just on its own, here's a little lead part that I played on top of it. Now remember, I've got this tabbed out, so you can get the tab for both the rhythm and this lead by going to Active Melody and doing a search for ML110. I'll end this video with this lead here. But if you've liked this lesson, leave a comment and let me know if you had any light bulbs. I so appreciate that. I think it's helpful for other people too, as we're learning how to play something, when somebody calls out something that was beneficial. And if you got questions about anything, leave those as well. All right, here's the lead, and we'll see you next week for something new.